The news said everything would be fine. Most of my friends were being encouraged to still go into work. We'd had a much worse hurricane just the month before. So why? Just why? Was Waffle House closed? It must have meant something bad was coming. Something terrible. Waffle House stays open through anything. I've seen those doors wide open in far worse conditions. If there are patrons around, they will sell to them. No questions asked. It's how things have always been. At the moment, I knew only two things. 1, I had to get out of there. 2, I needed to get to the bottom of this. So I did what any sane person would do. I tracked down the manager of my local Waffle House and went straight to his home address. He lived about a 10-minute drive away, in the next town over. There were still many other cars on the road at this time. All that kept racing through my head was why Waffle House would be closed. The hurricane wasn't for another few hours. If drivers could be out, Waffle House could stay open. In fact, I don't think I had ever seen them closed before this. Do their doors even have locks? I pulled up at the house. There was already a car in the driveway, so I pulled up on the sidewalk. I got out of my car and walked up to the door. I knocked. 3 stern, demanding knocks. No movement inside. This was definitely the right house, so I knocked again. 3 sterner, even more demanding knocks. Still nothing. I walked up to the window and peered in. A chair was knocked over. Breakfast was getting cold on the table. I could see the kitchen through an open door at the back of the room. The sink was overflowing with water. The faucet had been left on. I walked slowly back to my car. What could have made everyone leave so fast, and without their car? I sat down, defeated. I had come for answers, but it only collected more questions. To clear my head, I turned the radio on, and what blasted out of the speakers is etched into my mind.
Breaking news. All 2,100 Waffle Houses have decided to close today.
The only words I could muster up were, "My God." The first thought I had was, well, wow, that's a lot of locations. Is there really that many? That seems like a lot. But then my second thought was about how dire this must be. All Waffle Houses? Whatever was going on was not a localized problem. This was national, maybe even global. That's when I spotted a black car with tinted windows at the end of the road. I decided to follow them, in hopes that I had just caught the family as they left the house. I saw them disappear around the corner and immediately started driving. No other cars were around at the time, so I knew I had to be discreet, as my presence would be obvious. But when I turned the corner, there the car was, just stopped in the middle of the road, as if waiting for me. I slowed down to a stop, and their back left door opened. A man in a suit stepped out. As soon as his face was visible, I recognized him. This was the manager I'd been looking for. I felt my stomach drop a little as he approached the driver's seat window and waited for me to roll it down. He peered at me through the glass with calculating eyes, as if he already knew me. I rolled down the window. He spoke up.
"You're wondering how I knew you'd follow me, aren't you, Jeremy?"
I probably looked terrified at this point. I felt myself go pale, but tried to keep my composure. "You know my name?"
"I know a lot of things. Your name is just one. But you should probably leave, Jeremy. Things aren't safe in most of America."
He began to walk away, but as soon as I opened my mouth to talk, he stopped. Not a sound had left my lips yet, but somehow, without even so much as glancing back at me, he knew I was about to speak. Not safe? What do you mean? He stood for a moment, as if he was thinking. I'm not entirely sure why, as he seemed to know everything that was going to happen up to this point. But then he spoke without looking at me.
As a manager of a Waffle House, I'm granted special knowledge every morning. I'm told what will happen throughout my day. Not tomorrow, not next week. Every morning, I am only informed about the current day.
He turned back at me now and continued.
I'm told how safe my restaurant will be, how safe my staff will be, and how safe my family will be. I don't know who tells me these things. No manager does. We just know it's always through a phone call, and it's always correct.
I caught my breath, not even realizing it had sped up, and replied, And your family isn't safe today?
They are not, and it sounds like no family is.
What's causing it? What's going to happen? He looked a little scared, maybe sad. He had a way of hiding his emotions behind his cold, serious tone.
I've told you everything I know. I also know that this is the end of this conversation, and that's the last question you ask me today. Goodbye.
He was right. I was speechless, and hardly moved a muscle as he walked back to the car, got in, and was driven off. I contacted my friends and family and told them we had to go to Europe. I explained everything I could, but they all thought I sounded insane. They mostly told me I wasn't thinking straight. That's when the news interrupted all broadcasts. All planes were canceled due to a large solar flare, the largest ever recorded, estimated to hit somewhere in Northern America later that day. They urged the listeners not to panic, and that it was only precautionary. But I knew better. An anomaly is defined as anything that deviates from the expected, normal, or standard. This is quite a wide definition. An ant being slightly stronger than most others of its species is an anomaly. But so is something that breaks our perception of reality, something that goes against everything we've ever known. Bringing the nature of existence into question is an anomaly, something to be studied. When it gets swept away, unexplained, however much the anomaly has affected your life, you begin to feel a lot like that ant. Insignificant. My sister is an anomaly now. It started with a simple complaint about her hand feeling strange, a tingling sensation. The doctors almost flat out refused to do anything. I want to be angry, but then I remember telling her my own thoughts. It's nothing. Everyone gets weird feelings. It'll pass. It's what everyone told her. I suppose we thought we were reassuring her. Then the next symptom began. We awoke to her screaming over and over. My hand is drooping. My hand is drooping. Without any context, what does that even mean? She knew exactly what it meant. She was the only one living this nightmare. Nobody could quite understand what she felt. I burst into her room seconds before our parents did the same. There she knelt, on her bed, with the fingers of her right hand about twice as long as usual. I can feel them, she cried. They're trying to continue. My mother flicked the switch, perhaps hoping that our eyes deceived us in the dark. The middle of the night, in a very dim light. It seemed to teeter right on the edge of reality. It's the perfect condition to conjure up an illusion of the mind. Yet this, right here, was as real as you. Her hand was stretched. My mother immediately dialed the emergency services, whilst my father went into comfort mode.
Hey, it's all right. Are you feeling okay?
My sister sat for a moment, staring at her hand. Her breathing remained constantly heavy. In the background, I could hear my mother on the phone, although I wasn't paying much attention.
Yes, twice as long. She was asleep. No, I don't know how.
I feel. She paused, perhaps focusing on the feeling, deciding whether or not she felt okay. How would she even describe okay in this moment?
Long.
My father and I glanced at each other for a moment. Was that meant to be a joke? I smiled awkwardly.
What does that mean?
She got up from her bed, making it slowly apparent to all of us that she was taller. Not by much, maybe an inch or two, but in the context of human height overnight, that's a lot. The room fell silent. I think I could make out the operator on the other side of the phone, trying to see if my mother was still there. Physically, she was, but mentally, I think she was just worried for her daughter.
What's happening to me?
Her voice broke slightly. It broke all of us along with it. To sound so dazed and lost about your own self is heartbreaking. It was the last time I saw her with any description of human emotion. She lunged towards my mother in the doorway, not to hurt her, just to leave the room. Although, with all the urgency she had in her movement, I don't believe she would have cared if she hurt anyone on the way out. We all called out for her, but she didn't turn back around. She didn't speak. She just ran through the house. Leaving the light of her room, she blended into the shadows. I don't know if it was my mind deceiving me, but I swear I saw her hit her head on the ceiling multiple times, as if she was growing further. Each time she did, she grunted with pain, as if using a voice that was not her own. Each of us only seeing her from the corner of our eyes had managed to lose her in our own home. My father searched around upstairs, whilst my mother, still on the phone, started wandering the street outside. Catching a glimpse of something out the back window of the kitchen, I stepped outside. I was afraid of what I might be walking into. What nightmare could be waiting for me? I decided that whatever it was, I owe it to my sister to join her in this. Slowly, I made my way towards the movement. She had wrapped herself around a tree in the garden, one we used to climb as kids. She spoke something that I could only just make out over the sound of my own pounding heart.
Everything is long.
Her voice, raspy and weak, frightened me. Her black hair, usually down to her shoulders, now found its way down to the floor. I couldn't see her fully in the night, but the moonlight allowed me to see her vague shape. She was elongated, more so than before. My voice shook as I spoke, trying to calm her.
We'll fix this.
I held out my hand. For a moment, I thought she might hold out her own. Maybe she would have, if the sirens weren't so loud. An ambulance at the front of the house caught her attention as she let go of the tree, her snake-like limbs falling to the ground. as she made her way over the fence. They never caught her. We never found her. Her funeral was held a month later. It's been 3 years. I still live in the same house. Her bedroom is almost exactly as it was. We keep her door open. Sometimes as I walk past, I imagine her, sat in her bed. Her body is back to its regular self. "I'm okay now," she'll say. "You helped me." But it's a mirage, a trick of the mind. My sister as herself is no longer real. Is she still out there? Stretched. I got my answer last night. Unable to sleep, I slowly became acutely aware of a tapping noise. I don't know how long it had been going before my mind allowed it to be perceived. Seconds, minutes, hours. I suppose it doesn't matter. Once I had heard it, it stayed. 5 taps, rhythmically pattering against my window. Sick of the noise, I got up, ready to see tree branches blowing in the wind. Instead, I saw 5 long fingers extended from below my vision. The palm of the hand seemed just on the edge of what I could see. A face, beginning halfway up the window and continuing far below, looked in at me. The eyes were long, the open mouth being even longer. This was unmistakably my sister's face. Whether or not it's my sister is another question. I stood there for a moment, recoiling, but not making a sound. Her appearance is not what scared me the most. My hand began to tingle.
What time is it?
I don't know. I did know. It was 11:55 p.m. I lose motivation to talk properly when I'm tired. Although this was definitely an overreaction, at most, it would have taken an extra second to tell him the time. But I wasn't really thinking. I just wanted to get home, ignoring all social interactions. I didn't even look up to see this man's face. He left without saying anything, limping as he walked, leaving me alone at the bus stop, waiting for the final departure of the night. A single minute past midnight was the usual time on the schedule, although it's almost always late, despite only ever having a few passengers at most. My late shift at work had me used to these empty hours of the night. This specific part of town lacked in nightlife entertainment, leaving little reason to be out after dark. The shops were long closed, waiting for the bustling environment of the next morning. Until then, they remain silent. Some had their lights on all night long, spilling echoes of life into an otherwise inactive street. If the rapture occurred with me at this bus stop, it would take a long while for that news to reach me, as I simply continued waiting for an ever later, never arriving bus. These are the kind of thoughts I have as I wait in the dark for the bus. The occasional breaks in these thoughts are often caused by me checking the digital sign above me, displaying an estimate time for all upcoming departures, expecting to see 5 minutes, or perhaps a more delayed 10 minutes. I hadn't planned on having to read a whole sentence. So, as I finished checking the sign, only then did my mind realize that it had not even seen a number. I had checked the sign, but did not comprehend the content. My double take showed me what I had missed.
The next bus is not real. Do not board.
I stared for a moment before looking around. What I expected to see, I do not know. Perhaps some pranksters giggling at their work, or more sinisterly, a shadowy figure looming over to guide this paranormal event. Nothing. I saw nothing. The same street I had become familiar with had nothing new. It remained empty, with me as its only sign of life. So, I waited. It was 11:59 by this point, so only 2 more minutes remained. On time for what may have been the first time ever, the bus arrived. A single minute past midnight, and here it was, pulling around the corner, approaching the stop. I put out my hand to signal my need to board, feeling relieved that my only way home hadn't been canceled. As the bus approached, I noticed the dark interior. The headlights were on, but the lights inside were all off. I could not make out whether any passengers were on board, or even who the driver was. Being a regular, I know most of the final route drivers, but this time, it was anybody's guess. I got onto the bus, putting down the same change I always do. Bit dark, isn't it? Nobody replied, as the doors closed behind me, and the bus continued its way forward. I smiled awkwardly, despite knowing that the driver could not see me, and found a seat. I never found out whether there were any more passengers, but I can only hope that nobody else had to go through these next events. Almost immediately, I noticed stops being omitted from the route. A turn missed here, a completely wrong turn there. A panic set in, that I had somehow gotten onto the wrong bus, despite knowing for a fact that the bus I always get is the only local one that runs this late. Convincing myself that an unfortunate series of road closures had occurred, I remained calm and waited it out. After 10 minutes of this, we had circled back to the stop I had boarded at. In front of us, I noticed a more normal bus, the bus I was supposed to board. The lights were on, with a few passengers. It was waiting at the stop. I spoke slightly louder than the rumble of the engine. "Excuse me, can I get off? I'm on the wrong bus." No answer, as we slowly passed the correct bus. I could see the passengers inside all staring ahead. My gaze followed theirs, meeting at an ambulance, parked just slightly in front. A small group of paramedics knelt down in the beam of the bus's headlights, surrounding a body on the floor. I couldn't make out the body's face, as it was just out of sight, although one leg looked twisted. The passengers looked distraught, whilst the bus driver stood talking to the paramedics. I stood up. "I need to leave at the next stop." As I spoke, I pressed the bell, and the only sign of any internal lights lit up at the front of the bus. "Stopping." The sign then immediately turned off. Subsequent bell presses neither made the sound nor lit up the sign. "I need to..." The bus sped up suddenly, the force pushing me back into my seat. As I tried to stand up again, the wheels screeched as we turned a sharp corner without seeming to slow down at all. Again, the force pushed me back down. The speed continued to rise. The wheels on the bus went faster and faster, until the outside world became simply a blur. I had never seen a car go this fast, let alone a road vehicle as large as this. I thought for sure I was going to die, right there. "What are you doing?" I found myself yelling out amid the panic. The driver, for the first and last time, spoke. "I don't know. My mind raced almost as fast as my body was being thrown about. The world beyond the windows soon morphed into a void of black. Although the effects of our speed were still evident on my body, as the velocity pushed me in all directions, it felt as though we had somehow gotten even faster. Although this may have been the darkness forbidding my eyes of any reference for our true speed, we came to a sudden stop as I fell forward. The fall was violent, but still not as bad as you'd expect for a speed change of that magnitude. My nose hit the floor, causing a great deal of pain. I stood up, holding my face, trying to regain my balance. As the dizziness subsided, I began to notice where I was. We were outside my home. The bus stop I get off at is a 5-minute walk from here, yet here we were, directly outside my house. The doors gently opened. Despite my desire to leave as fast as possible, I found myself walking to the front of the bus. As I reached the door, I stopped, turning around slowly to face the still shrouded in darkness bus driver. I spoke what I always do.
Thank you.
I stepped onto the pavement outside as the doors closed behind me, followed by the bus driving forward into the darkness. I looked down at my watch. 1 minute past midnight. Tonight's pasta is by Black Volumes. Links in the description below. The doorway effect is that commonplace daily phenomenon of walking through a doorway and forgetting whatever you were thinking moments earlier. On a neurological level, the explanation for this effect is that our minds compartmentalize thoughts. So, passing over a threshold from one room to another can, from time to time, expunge one's short-term memory. Ever meandered around a room, not remembering why you originally entered it? That'll have been the doorway effect. It's a psychological quirk. Faulty wiring in the brain. A dotty, divvy, screwy, loopy moment. A neural refresh that happens upon updating one's physical location to somewhere new. And that sudden scatterbrain forgetfulness tends to make people chuckle. Is that always the case, though? You see, I've been experiencing this effect a lot lately, and always with the same door. Whenever I stroll from the kitchen to the main hallway, my mind entirely erases. I forget whatever I've just been thinking. Forget whatever I've just experienced in that room. That's frightening enough in itself, but something far worse happened after my last bout of short-term memory loss. Something that terrified me into fleeing my home.
Should we play a board game?
I asked my friend, Dale, as I returned to the living room, head feeling cloudy. He raised an eyebrow and smiled.
Sure, but what about that cupcake, May? I hate to sound rude. Cupcake?
I replied. He nodded.
Yeah, you and Jem were bragging about them. Your birthday cupcakes. Are you pretending to forget so you don't have to share them, Miss Greedy?
I blushed a little. Not again, I thought. Why do I keep forgetting what happens in there?
Right. Yeah, sorry, I got distracted.
I stammered, knowing full well what had happened. For the past month, I haven't remembered a thing that has happened in my kitchen. I'll come out with a plate of dinner in my hands, so I know I've been in there, but I didn't have the foggiest clue what else had happened in there. I do now.
Is she still in there?
Asked Dale. Then he called out.
Hey, Jem, fetch me a cupcake. What's taking her so long?
I gulped and twisted my head to face the doorway to the kitchen. From that angle in the lounge, I could see only a sliver of the room. Counters along the two perpendicular walls, meeting in the corner. Light split from the garden into that little cranny, but it failed to ricochet from the surfaces it bumped. It was as if a darkness were hanging heavily over the space.
"Jem!"
Dale called again, before chuckling.
"Is she deaf?"
I shrugged, hovering on my feet between the sofas and the doorway to the kitchen. That doorway which, until a few weeks earlier, had been just that, a threshold between rooms. Suddenly, I embraced the horror that I had been desperately trying to suppress. It was a threshold to something else, something I was forgetting.
"May?"
Dale began uncertainly.
"Is Jem even in there? I saw the two of you walk through there only 2 minutes ago. Am I losing my mind?"
I opened my lips to speak, but nothing came out. That, along with my face likely turning ever whiter, must have pushed Dale from curious to anxious.
"What's wrong, May?"
He asked, rising from the seat.
"Why are you being so weird? Jem!"
My friend continued to call out for her as he brushed past me.
"Please don't go in there."
I pleaded with a croak, but Dale ignored me and entered the kitchen. His shoes scuffed and brushed lightly against the tiles of the room, then slid to a sudden stop, and he screamed. It was the briefest sound of horror, extinguishing only a half moment after the halt of his footsteps. The sun, pouring through the window, seemed to be wrestling even more futilely with the dark of the kitchen, which pushed its rays backwards, pushed them up from the counters and the floor, back towards the glass pane, leaving the room lightless, leaving me standing before nothing but a black doorway. I blubbered.
"Dale? Jem?"
There came no response from the unfathomably cold space, but the darkness started to lift a few seconds later, as if the room had simply been cleansing itself, wiping away something, washing its secrets out to sea with a tidal shade. As I took tentative steps forward, I took my phone out of my pocket. I had to record it. Had to know whatever was happening in there. As I stepped through that doorway, I found myself being spat back into the lounge, memory having been wiped, leaving me unaware of whatever I'd just experienced. But I knew it had been something terrible. As I felt agony from the waist down, I looked below and saw red marks running up my bare calves and thighs towards the bottom of my skirt. I'd suffered first-degree burns. Hands trembling, I took out my phone and loaded the video I'd recorded whilst in the room. It was only 20 seconds long. There was no video footage. Both the image and the audio were distorted. Something had interfered with my phone. But I saw it. An opening in the wall. A black hole leading to a cramped pit of mud and rocks that looked far from earthly. And emerging from the shadows were two disembodied sets of hands, clawing into the dirt, desperately trying to drag themselves free. I heard the garbled sounds of my two friends pleading meekly for help. Heard distorted, robotic breathing. Heard the low-quality sounds of my own scream as those two sets of hands were dragged back into the shadows, plowing lines in the dirt with their nails. And then came two burning, murky oranges in the black. Two dots, neatly aside one another. Eyes! I dropped my phone in terror and spun to face the doorway to the kitchen. Heavy panting came from within. It was that unmistakable breathing from the video. No longer distorted. No longer a recording. A fiction tucked neatly behind a phone screen. No longer a forgotten memory. And it was coming from the room before me. And I wasn't forgetting. Then came the crunching, thudding sounds of something landing against the kitchen floor. Something so weighty that it was cracking the tiles. In terror, I screeched and fled. That was 12 hours ago. I ran straight to my parents' house. I don't have a plan. I won't tell them why I've run from home. Won't tell them why I've asked to keep the kitchen door closed. The pay is great, even if the work is mundane. I don't know who I work for. I don't know why I do what I do. I just do it. And I don't ask questions. I get my tasks through the mail, a couple of weeks before they're set to happen. They can range from taking a dog for a walk, to delivering eggs, to painting someone's fence. All freelance kind of work. And that's exactly what I have to tell people I am. When I first got this job, I was told my work might seem odd, but was assured it was all for a good purpose. I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, but not the typical kind. I can tell people what I do. It's encouraged even. I suppose that makes things less suspicious. If someone saw me delivering something and asked why, I can't exactly just pretend I didn't do it. I just am not allowed to tell anyone how little I know about what I do. It's been 4 years of this, and every time, things are set up for me to carry out the task. If I need to walk a dog, the house owner is expecting me when I knock on the door. If I need to buy eggs, the exact amount for the eggs I need has already been deposited into my bank. If I need to paint the fence, half the fence has already been painted for me, and the paint is left right next to it. If I ever have issues with a task, I have a number to call, but I've never had to call it. Everything has always gone exactly as it's described to me in the mail. At least, that was true until recently. I often notice strange things that almost seem to piece together, but not quite. On several occasions, I have to return from dog walks to find the house unlocked but empty. However, on all of these occasions, the letter in the mail has explicitly stated to leave the dog in the house no matter what. So that is what I do. Anytime I specifically have to deliver eggs, the cashier says something along the lines of, "Oh, sorry that these eggs are broken. Let me get you another one." I assume that they have a specific set of eggs for me to deliver. Why they would do this, I'm not sure. Perhaps they contain a message? Recently, though, things have changed. I turned up to a standard fence painting job. There are only 7 different jobs I've ever been given. It's far and few between that a job isn't a seemingly exact copy of an old one. But this time, things weren't left how they usually are. Half the fence was painted, as usual, but on the bare part of the fence, a word had been written using the white paint. "Beware." It was written in small writing, yet the feeling it invoked within me was deep. The paint was still wet, so it had only been written in the last few hours. Despite the terrible feeling of dread I had, I called the number. 3 rings, and someone picked up, but they didn't speak or say anything. So I spoke first. "I just turned up to my job. The fence painting one. Someone has written 'Beware' on the fence." A man's voice spoke up. I couldn't quite discern the accent, but it wasn't local.
Anything else?
No, I said, a little shakily.
Thank you. It'll be dealt with.
Then he hung up. I started painting the fence when a black car pulled up next to me. A woman rolled down the window and told me to get in. Normally, of course, I wouldn't, but it was safe to assume that this related to my job. So, given the circumstances, I got in. I started to panic when she wouldn't respond to me, no matter how much I asked where we were going. After a few minutes, we pulled up outside of my house.
You know the rules,
she said.
Not a word to anyone.
I got out, and as soon as my door was closed, she was driving off again. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't had any jobs through the post since. The ones I still had remaining weren't set up for me when I arrived at the locations. No paint, no money deposited for deliveries, nothing. This is the first time I've ever gone more than a few days without a new letter through the post. I'm not being paid. Yesterday, I called up the number again.
The number you are dialing is not in service.
I don't know how to contact these people, but I know that they'll come for me if I break my NDA. So that's why I'm writing this. I want to get to the bottom of this. I'd had them ever since I was a kid. I can remember being incredibly self-conscious about them, hiding them in my pockets, under books and bags. The kids at school never said anything to my face, but I knew they were laughing behind my back. I remember asking my parents to take me to the doctor, to get them checked out. The growths on my hand seemed to be the elephant in the room back then, since they'd just say I was fine and change the subject. But I knew better. I had tried to remove them as a child, but without avail. Scissors, knives, potato peelers. Trying to cut or scrape them off was always a lost cause because I couldn't continue once the pain kicked in. But today was different. It's amazing how numb you can get with a couple of tourniquets and a bottle of Jack Daniels. I was originally planning to use a sharp knife, but figured that trying to slice through the tough flesh of the growths would be too arduous in my drunken state. I opted for the slightly more technological Plan B. I had to hurry though. I was already pretty lightheaded and was starting to feel dizzy. My hands and forearms, nearly blue from lack of circulation, couldn't wait much longer either. The whirring of the blender helped to put me in a sort of trance, ready to do what I had wanted to do since I first looked down at my strange deformities. I shoved my left hand in first. The immediate sensation of sharp blades slicing through flesh was jarring, but I was surprised at how well the alcohol was working. I expected it to hurt more. I could hear the sharp metal churning and cutting, working perfectly as planned. I pressed my hand down harder. All those bad memories, all of the embarrassment, all of those horrible things were now nothing more than a thick red pulp. Breaking from the feelings of ecstasy, I pulled out before the blades hit knuckle. I smiled, taking a good look at my new hand. As for the growths, well, 5 down, and 5 to go. When you're admitted to a hospital, they place on your wrist a white wristband with your name on it. But there are other different colored wristbands, which symbolize other things. The red wristbands are placed on dead people. There was one surgeon who worked on night shift in a school hospital. He had just finished an operation and was on his way down to the basement. He entered the elevator, and there was just one other person there. He casually chatted with a woman while the elevator descended. When the elevator door opened, another woman was about to enter, when the doctor slammed the close button and punched the button to the highest floor. Surprised, the woman reprimanded the doctor for being rude and asked why he did not let the other woman in. The doctor said, "That was the woman I just operated on. She died while I was doing the operation. Didn't you see the red wristband she was wearing?" The woman smiled and raised her arm.
Something like this?
There it goes again. Something definitely moved this time. It was very brief, but out of the corner of your eye, you saw something. But wait, all the doors are locked, no pets, and your parents won't be home until 10, so there's no way something moved. It's just your imagination getting the best of you. Sitting alone in your room, the only light emitting from the monitor of your computer. You just stare into the darkness for several minutes, just to be sure. Now you feel silly. What were you thinking? Of course there's nothing there. What, are you 6? Go back to what you were doing. 15 minutes later, as you prepare to go to bed, you're in the bathroom. The shower curtains shift. Wait, no. Stop spooking yourself. It's just an overactive imagination, filling your head with what isn't really there. You gaze into the mirror at yourself. You say it to yourself, slowly and clearly. Imagination. With a sigh, you turn the lights off and head towards your room. Laying in bed, you stare at your ceiling, dark and foreboding, only the motion of a small fan disturbing the calmness of the night. A shadow from the light in the hall shifts. No. Stop it. It's your imagination. Just that. Go to sleep, you fool. But then, just when you're about to drift off to sleep, at the phase no one remembers when they wake, you sense something in the darkness. It's your imagination, leering down at you with a jagged, macabre smile. I am your worst nightmare. I know others claim to be, but they're wrong. When you realize I'm out there, your knees go weak. You see my name, your mouth goes dry. You see a shadow, you know it's me. You know I'm there, your heart races. You walk down the street after a long day at work. It's very cold out, and everyone has already retired to their warm houses, snuggled up by loved ones. But not you. No, you regret volunteering for overtime. You know I'm walking behind you, just far enough so I can see you, but not vice versa. I have been planning, waiting, observing. You cross the street in a feeble attempt to escape me. That won't work. And deep down inside, you know that too. You rush home, hoping that when you get inside your house, I'll disappear. You break out into a sprint, feet hitting the pavement hard. I run after. We're locked in a chase. Will I catch up, or will you escape? You practically throw yourself against the door. Breathing heavily, you fumble with the lock. You get in and slam the door so hard that the burnt-out light bulb in the kitchen regains power. You slump against the door, safe. Safe until tomorrow. For I will get you, Mr. Mailman. I will get you. I am Dog.